Formula One, built to win. Exciting races all over the world. And welcome to Nostalgia, a chronological exploration of every NES game released in North America. I'm Mike.
And I'm Sean.
And what we have here, not just a Formula One game, probably like the earliest iteration I can imagine on the Gran Turismo style structure of like a racing game that offers car purchasing, upgrading, and license testing nearly a decade before Gran Turismo 1 would go on to kind of not only invent that style, but perfect it. So we have it here on this NES exclusive racer. This didn't come to any other platforms by the developer Sata. Sean, before I get too in the weeds here, just want to hear your thoughts in general on not necessarily racing games or Gran Turismo, but just this format specifically of kind of like working your way through like, you know, a beater car and eventually getting to the Formula One championships.
Well, I guess like what you're describing is, I guess the term like Gran Turismo game is a bit of a misnomer. Like these are all built to win likes that we've been playing. But I really like this style. I guess it's not so much like racing specifically that has gotten me into them, or why I've always had a soft spot for these, but I think it's more so just like having an evolving shift in scope over the course of a game. And I think Gran Turismo 2 on PlayStation was the first time that I really felt that, and I had no idea that something like this existed on the NES.
Yeah, it's funny because, like, obviously this doesn't have the car library that the Gran Turismo games would have. And Gran Turismo 2 specifically just had, like, what seemed like an impossible number of cars to choose from. And yeah, some of them are just, like, slight variations. They weren't obviously, like, all, you know, like, based on real-world physics or anything. But it was still there, and there was the opportunity to, like, for something I didn't know, an itch I needed scratched to, like, yeah, I would like to race in a Honda Civic, you know? Like, everybody's trying to get you to race. Right, exactly. Everybody's trying to get you to race in these, like, ultra-fast cars, and it turns out it's like, is there a league for PT Cruisers? Like, maybe, and it exists right here. I think PT Cruisers were introduced in Gran Turismo 4, but still, the idea that, like, every car can be raced in, and that they're all, like, different classes and different types of races is is a welcome take. I like what you said about too, just like that the scope kind of changes. That's definitely true in this game too, as the cars, they upgrade from the, what is it, like a Mini Cooper, right? Is your default car?
Yeah, Mini Cooper, and
right.
You're just sort of you're jumping from city to city, finding parts, and then by the end of it, you're on the actual like Formula One circuit. So that's just cool.
Right. Realistic? Maybe not. But nevertheless, it's got the makings of a good movie.
It's as realistic as the map of the United States that they feature in this game.
And since I said the words movie, I'd be remiss to not mention that there was a Gran Turismo movie that, like, I laughed at the very idea of existing, but apparently it's like, it's not good, but apparently it's passable. So maybe one day.
I didn't have any interest in watching that. So
yeah, the interesting thing is like Gran Turismo as a brand, I think lives in everyone's head as like an amazing like sim racing thing, but it's like it's leading in nothing right now. Like it's not leading in ridership, like players. Like it doesn't have the most players. You know what I mean? Like no one's competing in it. Yeah, no one's competing in it. No one. It's not particularly well liked because they wound up like forcing a credit system that basically was like, you can try and earn all these credits, but you'd be much better off going to the PlayStation Network store. Mwahaha. It's like, they've made a lot of bad decisions from the days of like everything's on the disc and you can have it when you want it, you know?
I feel like it peaked with A spec or 3A spec and then maybe a little bit of 4. And since then, Forza's had their number.
Yeah, but Forza even had a tough time with the most recent one. I think there were like large layoffs recently on the Forza team because of the sales of the latest just don't do it. But I think that maybe we should mention that's because of a little game called iRacing, which apparently like even real Formula One racers are participating in on their off season and driving on. So it's like it's kind of hard.
I'll be honest, I know nothing about this at all.
yeah, just saying it's interesting. It has nothing to do with this game even, so I'm going to wrap it up. But I just think it's interesting that the format that we're describing here is just surprising to see this early. I definitely didn't expect that we could get this kind of game on the NES. It is obviously different than Gran Turismo, but even the idea of these Gran Turismo games has changed quite a bit, where Gran Turismo 7 doesn't quite have the same system that we're describing here or in the original Gran Turismo games. So it's kind of like, it's kind of lost. It came, it went, and I'm surprised to see it again so early here. So now that we've talked about the formula, the basic loop, if you will, is that you start in this clunky Mini Cooper. You grind through some pretty easy local races in New York, Detroit, and Miami, slowly accumulating some cash, using that cash to upgrade the parts for your car to be able to race in the harder races in like Yellowstone or Las Vegas or Denver. And then you pass the test to unlock new race tiers with a new car, and eventually, continue to upgrade that car until you unlock the F1 races. So the whole way, you're just, you're participating in races that you can participate in over and over again, too. This isn't like a level-based thing where it like tells you, okay, you start in New York level 1 and you got to do this race, and then level 2 is this. Right, much more sandbox. You can go visit these towns as you like. The different towns or cities, I guess it's not that small. The different cities have different shops, even of like what parts are available and such. And the most cutting edge feature is the ability to fly out to Las Vegas, take your winnings, and just bet them right there on the slot machines, baby.
I did do that pretty early on and had way more money than I had that I could do anything with because they wouldn't sell to me because I wasn't a good enough racer. So I guess that it's sort of like a shortcut that may be useless for a while.
Yes, and I think it's funny because I feel like the casino could have been a lot more punishing. Obviously, if you're emulating the game, you can just rewind if you don't like the result, and it's one of those interesting games where, or save states, whatever. It's one of those interesting games where like the result isn't necessarily predetermined. It's based on the frame you pull down the lever, so you don't have to like
basically you cheated the whole time.
No, I did not. Because again, to your point, it doesn't matter, right? Like if you haven't done any of the rank D races, you can't go play in rank C. So what's the point?
That's true.
And so all that to say that the casino is there, and it's definitely a way to help with grinding, but it's not necessarily the cheat it's made out to be. At least early on, you still have to go through all the races, and I think it's nice that like. There's so many from the beginning. There's New York, Detroit, and Miami that you can go to, but there's also multiple races in each of those cities. The New York race, where your icon or cursor starts anyway, does have the $0 entry fee race to reward you with a first place $500 finish. And then, eventually, with any other race after that race, you'll have to pay to get in, but the rewards will be bigger, so on and so forth. But it's not until you enter the race that you really get a sense of like how your car stacks up against the other cars. So I think it's worth talking about because just to go back to the Gran Turismo thing, a huge issue in those games is that money does become pointless. Not right away, but like after a few hours of playtime, money becomes pointless, and you can essentially just save up enough money to upgrade the car so that your car is is the car for that race. The other cars in the race don't get like the tune-ups that your car got to be competitive against you. You're just now like able to go 20 to 30 miles faster than them, and of course that's going to mean that you win the race. Like, duh. Nobody can't outrun an accelerator that can do an extra 30 miles per hour.
As long as you know what you're doing, there's a lot of people that just go max speed no matter what, like I did
true.
when I first got Gran Turismo 2.
Yeah, as a kid, I just didn't even know about brakes. I just thought you just went full
brakes
speed
are for
and
suckers.
you just turned at the appropriate moment, and the car would turn like any other arcade racer. But here it's not as sim-like in the racing department.
No,
and we can talk about that in a lot of different ways. But I just want to first clarify that like this isn't the kind of game where you have manual transmission and you have to follow a driving line and you have to brake appropriately. It's much more arcadey than that. Probably necessary, but Sean, was that a surprise to you?
No, I don't think that the tech is there for all of this to really make a lot of sense. Like you're always going to be on rails in these racing games, but I think they did a pretty good job of making the upgrades feel like upgrades and having pros and cons. Like you'll be a little bit harder to get knocked around, but you're gonna lose some max speed. And like when you do end up getting like an engine upgrade, that does feel like you are genuinely going faster, and your handling will improve if you've got better tires on. And like in other games, like where there are several different vehicles, it was a lot less obvious to me like what was changing. Almost like in a lot of sports games, like, oh, this team's better at this and that and the other thing. It's like, well, it all felt like the same game to me. At least in this game, the smaller improvements are still very noticeable. But the whole like racing engine, I guess, happening here, it's impossible to make it feel like it's a real, like it's happening in a real like environment. It's always going to feel like kind of Outrun like.
Yes, yeah. Now we did have Al Unser Jr.'s Turbo Racing, I think was the name of the game, and that game did have a little bit more, like, again, nothing like what we would see with Gran Turismo and onwards, but it did have a little more like simish nature to it, but not in the sense of like completely unique cars, and I get what you're suggesting here too about like even just the parts. You wouldn't be able to necessarily change like tire wear and grip and handling and all that. That's just hard stuff to do, and I agree with you that it's noticed here. The other reason why this isn't a sim, though, by any stretch of the imagination, and this one confuses me. Like, I get, and I kind of appreciate it being an arcade racer with some sim-like components, but the traffic in a race, like, are these non-sanctioned races? They have prize pools, they have entry fees, but they're like they didn't buy the permit for the track. Like, what the hell is going on? Why are there non-racing cars that are just trying to get to work on their commute, and you can bump into them instead?
This is the Need for Speed Underground universe, actually. So I think that's where this is coming from, or maybe it's all just different legs of the Cannonball Run. Before you join F1. I don't know. I didn't read the deep lore.
Yeah, and so there are blue cars and there are green cars. The blue cars are your actual like opponents, and
they're aggressive.
They're aggressive, but I also don't you think that the green cars, I don't think they're as aggressive, right? But if I saw somebody like speeding, I'm not gonna be like, well, I'll show them and try to like get them to ram into me. Like, I feel like they do a little bit of like not necessarily letting you through.
I think like no,
I'd be getting out of the way.
They definitely are going way too fast. That they are going as fast as people on the New Jersey Turnpike, and people on the New Jersey Turnpike are insane. So the New York levels at least makes a little bit of sense. But they don't try and actually block you like your opponents do. Like they usually stay
Yeah,
in their
it's
own
unfortunate
lane.
if they do. Yes.
Yeah, they usually stay in their own lane, and it's sort of like this very uh lackadaisical merge if they're changing from lane to lane. Whereas the blue cars are actually trying to get in your way, and the one like very silly thing, at least in the beginning of this game, is that your vehicle is made of paper, and if you just sort of rear end one of these cars, you're gonna spin out. There are some ways to counter that with I get there's a little bit of counter steering and you don't immediately spin out, but if you're new to the game, you're probably gonna spin out a lot.
Yeah, and we were talking even about how it's an arcadey racer, and it definitely is. But there are some, turns on these tracks, especially obviously with the faster cars, that do require, not only preemptive turning
Braking.
and such, but definitely braking. Right? Yeah, you can't go at these things just holding down the accelerator the whole time. Speaking of the accelerator, every car also has nitro in it as well, and you have a boost thing. The boost thing is interesting because it's something that also costs money. So after each race, you depending on how much nitrous you used, you'll have that remaining left. Yeah, so you have to fuel it up, but it's not that expensive by any means compared to the rewards of the games, and so it just becomes this tedious box that you sometimes forget to check of did I fuel up the nitrous? Oh, nope, I didn't. Okay, I gotta now do this race.
Yeah, it's a little silly. I mean, at least it's not something you can lean on. Like you can't just lean on your nitro for the entire race, and I guess that's just maybe a reminder that this is a resource to be used sparingly. But I guess maybe it could have been refueled on its own and just charged to your account after each race to make it less tedious.
And how about the actual locations? So you have early on, as I mentioned, New York, and then eventually you upgrade to other races. You can go to those cities before that, but you eventually upgrade to Dallas, Denver, Hawaii before you go international. Are those tracks and places are they obviously they're not modeled the New York one isn't you're driving on a specific highway or something like that, but is it enough of this is New York, or is it this is just another racetrack somewhere in the world?
A little bit of both. I was surprised by how many unique skyboxes, I guess would be the word here, there were, coupled with some there are different road textures. The night races look different than the day races, and there's grass, and then but then you get different visuals for each race. So I thought there'd be a lot more asset reuse there, but I don't think any of them really feel like anywhere. It's there's gonna be turns that all kind of look like the same. There is some simulation of going up and down hills, but it never really feels like anything. It's just this is where the track is taking me. But visually it looks cool.
So how does that loop work out for you of you run these races, you figure out kind of where you match up against the other drivers. Oh, that's another thing we should mention too is This also borrows from the newest set of Gran Turismo games, the idea that like every race is just a rolling start, at least before you get to Formula One, where basically you start in last and you just have to catch up to first. This has been a major complaint in Gran Turismo 7, that like there is no such thing as a qualifying lap, and you must always start in 16th place. And just
so that's how Ridge Racer worked too. Like I was always annoyed by that.
it doesn't really make any sense, because like a qualifying lap would still be like it takes time, so you have to agree to do it, right? You could just say, nah, I'll skip the qualifying lap and just start in last. But it also isn't necessarily like a given that you would just have the fastest lap, right? You might place like third or fourth, and then that's interesting. I just feel like the reason the qualifying lap doesn't exist in the NES game is the same reason it doesn't exist in Gran Turismo 7, which is funny. It's that the AI isn't good enough to like handle you being in first and then never seeing them again.
I think that because there is no the simulation isn't happening. Like it's just like the car doesn't spawn until you get up to it in this game. I don't know if it's the same reason. They're more so just they're just obstacles that move than actual like opponents that they fill in like a time after the fact to make it feel a little bit more realistic. But it's annoying, but it's what I expect. Like I wasn't expecting to see 8 vehicles on the same screen all trying to avoid each other. I feel like that would have crashed the console. But what I do like about this is, I guess, just a different topic entirely.
Go there.
What I did like about this game is just the sense of progression, and I know that we already kind of touched upon the idea of the expanding scope, but and the fact that the upgrades feel like something. But I think the little touch that I wasn't expecting and appreciated the most was just that when you get a new car, your dashboard changes entirely, and that was just weird. It was weird and cool, and like you're kind of like moving forward, and it's not so much like going into the future, but like the dashboard of the Mini Cooper just looks kind of lame, and then as you get better and better cars, like it becomes more futuristic and like supercar-y, and I don't know. I just wanted to shout that out.
I think there's a lot of nice touches just throughout the game presentationally. Like I agree with you on those dashboards, but also just even like changing parts when you buy parts upgrades and seeing them be applied to the car. In any other like NES game, for the most part, just like how it is in most RPGs on the system, you buy it and then it's not like you see, like you buy the sword, right? Let's say in like a Final Fantasy game, you don't see the merchant like hand you the sword in like a cool cutscene, right? And you like hold
just
it
have
in your
the
hands.
sword.
Yeah, exactly. Where that could totally have happened here. You could have just like bought the engine, and then like even worse, you might have to like apply the engine, but that doesn't happen here. Instead, it's like you watch the engine get like put onto your car, the old one gets taken out. I think they even, if I recall correctly, they buy it back from you, right?
You have to go to a different shop to sell.
Oh, okay, right.
Gear.
There are different shops to sell, yeah. But that's neat, right? They didn't have to do that either. So it's kind of like there's a reason to travel back to areas that you were at, even though the races you completed there are long gone, right? So you're not like done with New York and Miami once you get to rank C. It's just you're not going to be racing there unless you're, somehow blew all your cash at the casino, and now you need to kind of like work up again. And by the time you get to the Formula One races, the speed of the game has really changed. So I think there's like a noticeable jump throughout the game. There's a noticeable progress, very, very gently throughout the game. But the Formula One stuff, like that car is genuinely like hard to handle, even in this arcadey game, just because of its speed. So it does rely on, obviously it has way better handling, but it does rely on fast twitch reflexes, because the pseudo 3D that it's doing and the kind of tracks that are in Formula One, there's lots of winding turns and there's lots of sudden turns, and the speed is definitely being translated well here. So I'm still impressed I think the wrong thing to do would just be have a miles per hour thing just go up without any sense of speed being added. I think there is a true challenge to these Formula One tracks where it's like, okay, yeah, you were good enough to get here, but are you good enough to stay here?
Yeah, I noticed it because I didn't have enough time to actually play through the entire campaign. So after playing through a bit of it, I just sort of went to free mode and played each different vehicle, and they all have a completely different feel. Like the Mini Cooper is like, it's so funny that that feels like most of the racing games that we've played, with just the handling what it is and the speed what it is, and then just the jump to I forgot the model, but it's just sort of I guess the Econo sports car. Like that's huge difference. And then the Ferrari's a huge difference, and then the F1 is just, yeah, they did a good job with making them all feel like different vehicles.
The car, it's like the Vector or something like that.
I think you're right. The Vector sounds right.
Who makes that? I'm looking it up real fast. Sorry. Oh no, Vector is the maker. Looks like the car is maybe the W8. The Vector W8 is a sports car. Yeah, this looks like it. It's pretty cool. I actually think it might even look cooler than the Ferrari in real life. But the Ferrari is the F40, and that's pretty cool too. So what are you going to do? There was also, did you notice that each car's like engine makes different sounds too? So there's not like one stock car engine sound throughout the game.
There is one things stock, that matter. There is one stock tire screech sound, and then if you're silly enough to put on music for any of the races, like I did at the beginning, you don't really hear any. You get no feedback.
Yeah, you can only have one or the other. It's music or feedback.
So I played every other race without the music. I don't know if that was sort of how you did it, but I'm sure it would have been a complete cacophony if I didn't do that.
Yeah,
or if they didn't do that and try to play music and sound effects at the same time.
Right. The music's not half bad, so I think I stuck with the music actually. I got I got out of the I was happy to hear the engine sound effects and all that, but yeah, I didn't mind the music. So let's talk about like some of the these things could just be described as difficulty, but also just the gameplay mechanics here. Let's get a little in the weeds. The grind of it all. The money grind. Is there one? Did you feel like you were grinding too long in the Mini Cooper? And I don't mean that from like a personal thing of just like I want to make sure I have enough money, but like does it take too long to get to the next upgrade path? Is it enjoyable, like the amount of time that they set you in these cars, the upgrades, upgrading the parts along the way, or does it just kind of become this sort of ever-moving barrier of like, okay, well, because the other cars are getting faster too, I'm just kind of still in the Mini Cooper and I want to get out?
I think that there was a pretty good balance here. I think that when I first booted up, the first thing I did was get a new engine because I could afford it, which leaves you with no money. And then doing all three of the New York races, I think you net maybe $900. So you spend $2,000 on the engine, you make maybe like $2,900 on the winnings, and then you have to minus however much nitro you spent. So it's a little slow going, but I think if you're trying to like actually spend time with this game, like you're not gonna be too annoyed with that. It seemed to go at a pretty good clip.
I feel like most importantly, the game had a battery backup. So this was a game that saved. And I feel like that's a huge deal. This isn't the kind of game that you have to pour a ton of time into and do every race in an afternoon. This is the kind of game where like you can do New York today, Detroit tomorrow, Miami the next. It's like you can kind of just go through these areas ever so slowly and enjoy the game, as opposed to like, all right, well, I really just want to, find the fastest path to the F1 car. It doesn't exist. There is no true fast path. There's kind of like shortcuts you can take along the way if you know which things to properly upgrade to just be fast enough. But like that stuff requires time, and you'd have to have at least done one kind of playthrough before that to get to that point anyway.
Yeah, not everyone is trying to knock these out for a podcast, you know?
Yeah. And is there there isn't really a part strategy though, you know? So in the Gran Turismo games and the Forza games and any racing sim game nowadays, it's not always that you just want to have the soft tires. You know, like you don't.
Yeah.
Depending on how many laps you got to do and how much fuel you have and the weight of your car, like those things matter. Here, it's kind of like you do just want to apply the best part.
Yeah, I had to kind of go back and forth with like, well, I know this from racing games that are more advanced and can simulate things. So I actually didn't even get to a part where I think like I would have been making those decisions. But I had a feeling that it wasn't going to be quite as strategic.
And I mentioned the the nitro being kind of trivial. Apparently, I didn't get there either, but I did play in free play mode the F1 car. I didn't get there, but apparently during the F1 season, the refill cost of nitro and the how much nitro you use in the race matters significantly, and so that becomes another balancing act of just like because of the straightaways and because of the amount of nitro you have and the length of the tracks, like it matters more, and so that would have been interesting in a season, to kind of battle with that. But I still feel like just having access to your other cars and access to the slot machine and access to money makes it so that like you can trivialize the cost of anything in this game just by racing enough.
So the Gran Turismo issue hasn't been retroactively solved in 1990.
Yeah. And I don't know how to solve it, if I'm being honest. I think that's a job for the people who actually get paid to do that stuff, because while I've thought about it, I don't like any solution I've come up with, because any solution I come up with usually involves like making it less fun of a game. Like, isn't it just fun to just like have a lot of money and buy like all the cool parts for the car as immediately as you receive the car? Should you really have like, okay, you have a whole new bankroll for this new car, like, and every car has an individual bankroll, so you have to like ride races in them first? That sucks. That sounds awful.
I think the concept of having a difficult economy should remain in the world of shit like EVE Online. Like, as long as it's in like multiplayer, then I guess it makes sense. But no, can you think of a game that has a quote unquote like difficult economy that's single player?
Here's an interesting thing. Not that Gran Turismo 7 is single player, but like they have, there's the used car dealership, there's the new car dealership, and then there's this new Legends shop where like, all of the highly sought after cars from either like, the 60s, the 70s, but also like, some Formula One and GR cars and stuff like that. Those things all like live in the Legends ones, like the best of the best. And those cars are like, 15 million credits, let's say. Okay?
Okay.
A race that takes about an hour to finish gives you about 800,000 credits. So we're talking 16 hours to afford one car. That sounds pretty painful.
Oh, but I'm sure
that sounds like a difficult economy.
It sounds like they also will give you the option to buy this currency, though.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, no problem.
Okay.
You can go ahead and go for it. All
right, but I would like an example of this before microtransactions.
Right. Yeah. What was something that just was unobtainable? Was there anything ever that was just... wasn't there something in... I feel like there was something in Pokemon that was like 9,999 at like one of the casino things, whatever.
That's a Joe question, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And it's also like, this isn't a race. There's a racing thing. You can't race Pokemon. Why can't you race Pokemon?
They should. There should be like a Greyhound race thing for Pokemon.
Yeah, they let us raise them, but they won't let us race them. All right, I got that out of my system. To go back to the F1 stuff though, because I think it's important. Obviously, there is no at least New York racetrack that is located near the city as of yet, or within.
But don't
the city.
they usually just like close the? Don't they just like make these
yeah,
races
for
out
F1,
of the city?
Yeah. Absolutely, yeah. And that's what I'm saying. So like for the races before F1, they're all imaginary. They're all like in almost impossible locations. But the F1 ones are actually based on the 1990 and I think even like they had plans for the 1991 year already, so they used some of those as well. And they are the actual tracks that were featured in those seasons for those specific locations too, because each one of those races, Brazil, Mexico City, USA, which at the time, the USA, now we have 3 Formula One races, but at the time it was in Phoenix, which is interesting because I don't think there's a Phoenix one anymore.
Yeah, maybe it outgrew Phoenix.
Yeah, it's just Las Vegas, Austin, and Miami.
And I guess this is just like insofar as there can be a real track. I guess it's just modeling like when you're going to turn left or when you're going to turn right, because again, there really isn't that much going on in terms of the actual like track construction here. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I wonder if they even got the distance right. You know, like did they measure it in that kind of regard too? Because like obviously, there are people who will, draw out, on game FAQs or whatever, and you'll look at the drawn tracks and you'll look at the actual tracks and they match and everything. But like, did they take the time to make these almost like reference tracks where like the speed of the Formula One car is traveling the same length that you would expect in a real F1 car, so that the turns are as quick and all that?
I doubt
Hard to
it.
say. No way I could know that. I just think it's interesting that they went through the trouble at all of going through that, because at the end of the day, the whole Formula One built to win thing as the title is a little odd, right? Like this, I never thought this was like a Formula One game.
Well, because maybe we spent most of our time before we got to Formula One. It is weird that they would give it that branding and then have an entire portion of the game not take place.
Well, yeah, but you're right though, that like it's the brand thing, right? Like I forget that Formula One is like something that you have to like license, and so like because they got the license to it and were able to use it, like that's the name you go with at the top.
But again,
I get that.
Going back to the whole like change in scope over time, like I think that's really cool. Like if there was it happens in like sports games, like in Madden, if you create a character, you can start in the Senior Bowl for an actual college football team, and while the execution of that mode is pretty crap, I still like the concept of it. So more of that. More of everything, please.
And apparently, after you complete everything in the game and everything like that, there isn't some secret car to unlock or some cool like bonus track or anything. It's just you're the F1 champion of the world, and that should be enough for you. Damn it! I'm not saying that the game itself doesn't have enough to offer at that point. It is just kind of weird that like you make your way through everything, and there isn't some cool thing you can do. The cool thing you can do is that you don't have to play through the whole game again. You can just go to the free mode and just do a time attack with any car on any track. No AI, single lap.
Yeah, it's a little dumb.
But I do think there is something to like the like if you've mastered it all, now it's like a competition of like fastest lap stuff. It's obviously way before sharing high scores online and everything like that, but it would have been cool, right, to have this ability to like compare with friends and say like, well, I got like 127 on this track. What, 127? Like, and then you save it, so it does save to all your time saved to the battery too. I feel like that was the kind of stuff that was cutting edge on those racing games back then anyway, right? Of the PS1 days, is like Gran Turismo had a whole arcade mode as well, in addition to its sim mode.
Yeah, I guess we're talking about post-game content right now, which isn't really a thing yet.
Yes, yeah. But I'm saying even if there is no post game content, the free mode essentially frees you of having to do all the sim shit again to go do all the best stuff. Like it is nice that they gave the option for just a time attack. Should it have been just strictly a one lap like fastest lap thing? Probably not. Like you should have been able to turn on or off computers.
Yeah,
and the like,
I would have liked maybe time attack is one of the options, and then exhibition for just a race with eight or 7 computers would have been nice, because we know that they can do that. Like, there's no reason they couldn't have at least offered you an opponent to race against.
And while you can, there's the parts that you can upgrade, tires, engines, brakes, suspension, all that stuff's great. You can't go to a car wash and get the car washed. So this game's like a wash, right?
Yeah, what they should have done was sort of had like the equivalent of like a power washing simulator as like a mini game, and then you would get you would actually run a car wash, and that could be an alternate way to make money if you kind of crashed out and lost everything at the casino.
Do you think it's odd that Las Vegas has the casino and that's like the only other like neat quirk of the game? Like, should every city have had something like of a mini game of some sort? Like what would they even have though? Like what would be in New York that could be somewhat car based or money based? Like would you buy like a Scammers CD in New York, and then you could listen to those tunes on your car?
I like that idea. I think every idea I'm going to have is just going to be an insult to whatever city it is, so I'm just going to stick with no comment on this one.
Yeah. Well, you can go to Denver and do some altitude training.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Wait, you need what? That. Because it
is high.
The altitude's higher there. Yeah, it's a thing runners actually do. So I just thought it'd be funny to bring that to cars as well. Like you need to bring your car up to altitude so this way it trains, in more intense conditions.
Good stuff. Yeah, and then in Hawaii, you could just relax for a bit.
So A is the gas, B is the brake. No, I'm joking. We're not gonna. I feel like we've talked about everything. We've exhausted. We've exhausted our topics here. I just wanted to say that if I haven't said it enough, I'm just in awe that this exists. And as somebody who collects Gran Turismo games and plays them very much, I feel like I just I want to see now. Not only do I have to get this, I need to see, what else can be done. Like, we have more racing games to go. Like, can anyone top this idea? Like, it's a really neat idea for a racing game.
Al Unser's Formula One Built to Win Grand Prix.
Nostalgia's Essential Games list happens right now. Okay, now, no matter what I think about Gran Turismo, that shouldn't apply here to Formula One Built to Win. This game is being judged on its own merits, and what I think we have here is we have a game with some incredible systems, some really fun progression tracks, and then a kind of mediocre racing game. Like it's like a kind of racing game that's just sometimes a chore if your car is really good. There are moments, don't get me wrong, where it could be an intense race, and because of the spread out nature of your opponents, you have to catch up and everything. And there are some times where, when you finally hit the finish line and you were in second, you see that you were only 1 or 2 seconds behind the other guy, and I got to get back in there, right? And you do it better and you cross it, and that's very satisfying. But that's kind of rare. I feel like you either enter a race and you just don't have either the right parts or enough money yet, and it's just not going to happen, or you're over-equipped, and now you're just playing a giant game of, using the wind to pass your opponents and wave to them along the way as you just easily eclipse first place. That doesn't sound like a fun enough game to me. So while I really enjoyed poking through the systems and visiting the different cities and racing in the different cars and all the neat little touches they did, it's just kind of like a B plus on the racing games. It doesn't get the A. So no, not essential for me. What about you, Sean?
Yeah, the whole scaffolding around the racing game, it's something we haven't seen before on the system, and there being like a genuine career mode that you're actually like making decisions, and it's also laid back, and like it's not like one of the pseudo grand strategy games like Nobunaga or something like that that's super systems based, and it's more so just like a math equation. So I like the middle ground there, but you're right. The racing game itself isn't all that interesting for all the reasons you said. But still super cool. Definitely a play it if you like racing games. Good stuff. Not essential.
It is worth just mentioning that the Formula One mode in the game, is more involved in general than the rest of the game, and that there is some interesting, like, racing strategies at play in that specific section of the game. It's just kind of a shame that it takes so long for that stuff to shine, and I feel like they should have been teaching you that from the beginning. But, who knows? I didn't look into if there's like a sequel to this, or even like a spiritual sequel from the same developers. So who knows? Maybe Sega Corporation has it in them to refine this in another one.
Maybe.